God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoiseth and Dave Dabbah.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. I am Dave Dabbah, and that is Brad Hoiseth right over there in beautiful Southern California. It is week number 7 of your National Football League season, and have we got a great show in store for you today. We're going to give you our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this weekend, and it was a tough weekend to come up with 10 games. But Brad, before we dive into it, I've got to know what the heck is going on in the National Football League today.
Well, first of all, Adam Gase has still got a job. That's inconceivable to me, really. You've got what appears to be double mute inside the Dallas Cowboys locker room, which doesn't surprise me. That seems to be the same thing we saw out of Mike McCarthy when he was in Green Bay. Maybe most importantly, in terms of things that could challenge games this weekend, is in Oakland. Big tackle Trent Brown was sent home with COVID. Now the rest of the offensive line has been sent home. So they'll have to go through some testing protocols. I don't know what you do if you don't have an offensive line. I don't know if they cancel the game or they postpone it, or if they just say you got to come up with 5 linemen and we'll go.
They should call Kirk. They should call Kirk Cousins and ask him, "What do you do when you don't have an offensive line?"
Well, there's some truth to that as well. Vikings fans are ready to jump off bridges. My dad sent me pictures of 3 inches of snow on the ground in a small little town in northern Minnesota. So, it's going to be a long winter in Minnesota. They're not very happy right now. And but again, it's kind of a reoccurring theme. There's another thing too, and we're going to talk about this as we get into the games. Is that there's 3 remaining undefeated teams left, and all of those teams have played exceedingly soft schedules, and so I think it's not long that we're going to have no undefeated teams remaining here. I think right now it's Seattle, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Pittsburgh, Tennessee play each other this weekend. So, there's some really bad defenses historically. Look at Seattle. Seattle's given up 470-something yards a game on defense. I mean, you keep doing that, and your undefeated record isn't going to last very long.
One of my favorite stats of the week came on Monday Night Football towards the end of the game. And it was a Steve Levy line, worth basically paraphrasing and re-mentioning, which is there are 3 teams in the National Football League that have more wins than the entire NFC East combined. Which is just it is absolutely amazing to me how bad the NFC East is. If you have a chance, do check out our big website at Mighty.rip. There's a letter to Woody Johnson, which is fantastic, about taking over the New York Football Jets, and there are a couple stories on something we're floating here at Mighty.rip, which is the concept of relegation. And should the NFL someday consider bringing relegation from European soccer, specifically to the entire National Football Conference East at this point? All right, Mr. Hoiseth, I think it is time to get into our top 10 games worth spending some money on. You have the honors, as always.
Well, first off, let me start by saying this. It's been a tough run for the last couple of weeks, but I am dead set on setting the thing straight this week. I even put on, I think, the shirt I was wearing in week 2 when I went 8-2. For those people out there that, remember Wade Boggs used to wear his socks backwards and he'd eat chicken before every game. I'm bringing out the superstitions and I'm putting out the winning shirt. So, my first game, 5th game on my board, Seahawks at the Cardinals. The Seahawks are 3.5 point favorites in Arizona. They're one of only 3 teams, as I said earlier, without a loss, and they're the only undefeated team in the NFC. However, upon further review, they've one of the softest schedules in the league. Seahawks opponents are 9-20, and Seattle has really won a game convincingly since week 1 when they beat Atlanta. They're coming off a bye, but safety Jamal Adams still hasn't practiced this week. The Seattle defense is horrendous. They're dead last in the league. They give up 477 yards a game. I got news for you. If you continue to give up 477 a game, not only will you not remain undefeated, they will not make the playoffs if they play that bad on defense. And so at some point, they're going to meet up against some better teams. The Vikings dominated them for over 50 minutes 2 weeks ago. Seattle just has no answers on defense, and they may have even bailed on the idea of improving the defense, as it's reported now that they may be interested in Antonio Brown. So they might just figure, hey, screw the defense. We're just going to try to outscore people. On the other side, you got Arizona, who's a growing team. The Cardinals offensively can beat you both ways. They have outstanding weapons in the passing game, and at times, they can be really good running the ball. The Cardinals are 4-2 overall. They trail the Seahawks by a game and a half in the standings. It's a divisional battle. I say they keep it closer than 3.5 line. I take the Cardinals. I'm not sure they'll win, but at a home game, it's an important game for Arizona if they want to stay in the race. I'll take the Cardinals in the 3.5.
Since Brad is wearing his lucky blue shirt, and he started talking about superstitions, I couldn't help but think of Joe Boo from Major League, the movie, which is absolutely fantastic. I will get you some chicken, so you can, and we'll get you the fried chicken. We couldn't go with a real chicken on this.
No, I don't think Wade Boggs ate fried chicken. I think he was a little more health conscious than that. He ate, I think it was like before every game he ate chicken. It was a really bizarre thing.
Yeah, that's funny. So I was looking at this game and, super, excited about the Arizona Cardinals at the start of the season. As you know, I'd really been sort of one of the first people sort of saying, last year's Arizona Cardinal defense would be significantly better this year, and Kyler Murray was getting better and all those things. So I'm on the Arizona Cardinal bandwagon for sure. Though certainly if you look at what happened against Dallas, it was amazing. Just keep an eye on this in this game on Sunday. Just see Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins having a conversation on the sidelines, because those two have some very, I don't want to call them heated conversations, but they don't look entirely pleasant for Kyler Murray. Murray targeted Hopkins 8 times against Dallas and only completed 2 passes to him, and we all know how bad Dallas is. So there could be something sort of brewing there underneath the hood, if you will. As I sort of look at this game, I think, Pete Carroll's just such a good coach. I agree, Brad. They've given up on defense. I think their defense is going to be a little bit better. They're coming off of a bye. But when I sit down and I actually look at it, and I can't get out of my mind the 9 completions, the only 9 completions that Kyler Murray had against that horrific Dallas Cowboy defense the other night. So with that being said, if it comes down to Kyler Murray versus Russell Wilson, I'm taking Russell Wilson, and I'll certainly give up the points in this one. There you have it, Mr. Hoiseth.
Well, that's a good point. And I do like the fact that Seattle's coming off the bye, and I think Pete Carroll's an excellent football coach. I just look at that 477. I've never seen a number like that before. I look at the Cowboys, and they're really bad. They're not even close to the Cowboys. Seattle is so far buried, 32nd in the league, that I don't know that they'll ever get out of it. And so it's not like they've played the who's who. Their schedule has really been up to dogs. If you're giving up those kind of yards to the Kirk Cousinses of the world, I don't think Kyler Murray is quite there yet. I'm not quite sure he's a great passer. I think his legs are what make him dangerous. And I do believe that there is some tension between he and his wide receiver. And I think if you're going to get it worked out, I think it's a good time to get it worked out against the Seahawks.
Yeah. Yep. All right. Well, we will see. Brad and I are immediately disagreeing with each other out of the
And
gate.
I got my lucky shirt on, so get ready.
We'll see. So every week I try to do something special for Brad on the show. And usually I wait until a little bit later in the show to do it, but today I'm just going to get straight to it because I know that Brad wishes that shirt that he's wearing right now was actually green. He wishes that it was signed by Doug Peterson and Carson Wentz, the 30th ranked quarterback in the National Football League. So we've got a Thursday night football game, which is going head to head with the presidential debate. Another good article on the Mighty.rip website. If you have a chance, check that one out. That being said, so we've got the Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles in this one. I want to put the Giants in perspective for a second. The Washington football team, in my opinion, might be the worst football team in pound for pound if you look at position by position in the league. Look, I love Ron Rivera, and I'm sure they'll get a couple wins just because Ron Rivera is that good of a coach. But this franchise is a total disaster. We all know what's going on behind closed doors in Washington. Whatever is happening behind closed doors is certainly continuing to happen in front of those doors, as the New York Football Giants, really just a horrific football team as well, only beat the Washington football team by a point. That being said, I think this is the best 1-4-1 football team I've ever seen in the National Football League. Now, I'm not just saying this week. I'm saying ever. Best 1-4-1 football team ever. You got to give up 3.5 points, and I'll absolutely do that. I'm heading with the Eagles.
Well, I think you and I talked earlier in the day, and I said the NFC East has got 4 teams that you could make a case that they're all the worst team in the division, and you could make a case that they're all 4 the best team in the division. I mean, that's how just cumulatively bad they are collectively. And so, I mean, the Dallas Cowboys are still in first place. I mean, that's laughable just with as bad as they've looked. The Eagles, I'm with you on this one. The Eagles, despite their woes, have managed to keep things pretty close with some actually pretty good football teams in recent weeks. And so, weren't they the team that schooled the 49ers a couple weeks ago? And then they played a pretty tough game again last week. And so, one problem is that, now they don't have a tight end. I mean, Zach Ertz is out now on the IR, and Dallas Goedert was already put on IR, so they're going to the third string guy, which is Richard Rodgers, who was a former Packer. And that's a big part of their offense. And they just haven't been able to keep guys healthy on offense. The offensive line has been a disaster. That's the concern I have if you're Philadelphia, with Chase Young on the other side of the line of scrimmage for Washington. But after his quick start, he got dinged up, and he hasn't really quite been the same player. Washington seems to be going in the wrong direction. Philadelphia seems to kind of be going in the right direction despite only having 1 win. So I'm with you. I'm going to take the Eagles in that one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, look, Doug Peterson he's doing what he can do with what he has. I mean, they still didn't really address their need for a wide receiver during the offseason, or enough wide receivers. In fact, they let a couple go. So I think Philadelphia, is just clearly a better team when you look at it. And look, I'm looking at total, utter Thursday night football mass destruction by this Philadelphia Eagle team. I wrote a feature earlier in the week, and part of that feature I said, this was a game where I thought the Eagles would win by double digits. And I mean, that's how strongly I feel. This is literally one of those games where you shouldn't do it, Brad, but literally, here's the title to my car. I feel so strongly that they're going to cover 3.5 in this game. It's ridiculous. This might be my pick of the year to this point.
I'm glad it's your game. I don't feel strongly about anything that involves a team in the NFC East, but I'm going to go along with you this week. Let's get on to my fourth game, and that is the Browns at the Bengals. Not exactly two teams that have had a tremendous amount of success in the last, couple of decades. The Browns are 3-point favorites. They received a real wake-up call last weekend, an embarrassing loss against Pittsburgh. Now we find out what kind of character the Browns have. And, I'm with you. I think Kevin Stefanski's a better coach than they've had in previous years, and I would expect them to get back to doing what works. Cleveland's strength is running the football, and Cincinnati, they're one of the worst, run-stopping teams in the league. The Bengals, have given up like 142 yards a game on the ground, 5.1 yards a carry. It should have Kareem Hunt salivating. If there is a little bit of a bright spot for Cincinnati in this one, is that, Nick Chubb's out, Kareem Hunt's a little bit dinged up, and the team's already played once this year. So if there's a formula there that they can, put together, they could be successful. The problem is that, the first time around, Cleveland had 215 yards rushing. The question is, will they be any better the second round? I'm saying that they won't. I'm going to take the Browns, and I'll give you the 3 points.
Yeah, I have to apologize to all of the Gods of Odds listeners and God himself for falling on the Cleveland Browns sword last week, as I decided to jump on the Cleveland Browns bandwagon. And I should know better. We should all know better. You pointed it out to me. You said, Dave, when they go to Pittsburgh, this is not the kind of game that the Cleveland Browns will normally win. And I was like, no, you got all this talent and, Kevin Stefanski and, it's a different Cleveland Browns. Brad, it's not your dad's Cleveland Browns team. Well, I was wrong, so badly wrong. And as that game started and I was like a quarter in and I was just shaking my head. I'm so reluctant to actually go with the Browns this week because of that. Look, Baker Mayfield and that entire Cleveland Brown team could literally be suffering from PSTD at this point coming in to this game. That is my biggest concern with this game. That being said, Joe Burrow, as great as Joe Burrow has been, everybody's like, Joe Burrow this, Joe Burrow that. He's going to be the rookie of the year. He's like Baker Mayfield is the 26th ranked quarterback in the National Football League, and Joe Burrow is the 25th ranked quarterback in the National Football League. If you're going to talk to me about rookies of the year in the National Football League and you're going to bring up a quarterback, then you need to be talking about Justin Herbert, who has a 107 QB ranking. Anyway, I had to get that out. I don't think we're covering the Chargers this week. So I'm going to go with the Browns, but I'm reluctant.
Yeah, look, Baker Mayfield is what Baker Mayfield is. And, he can't win a game on his own against the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's going to have some help there. One of the problems the Browns didn't get very many stops last week. Pittsburgh has a great coaching staff. They find ways to win. They're way more experienced in those types of environments. But I do think there's some optimism in Cleveland this year. I told you last week I'm not entirely full on their bandwagon yet, but I do believe they're going in the right direction. And this is a key moment for them because in past years, this is where the ship, just completely goes underwater. But I believe Stefanski's a better coach. I think the Browns have got a lot of weapons and a lot of tools, and I just don't think the Bengals are very talented.
Yeah, I agree. So, Brad, it's time for my fourth pick. Now, I was looking at my picks, and I realized, gosh, I do have a Charger game to pick from this week, and I am going to pick the Jags in Los Angeles at that beautiful new SoFi Stadium. Hoiseth, all you can do at this point is drive by and wave. you can drive by and wave, and then look at the Great Western Forum, which I think is now a church, which is probably going to turn into the home of the Los Angeles Clippers someday. But that being said, I'm looking at this. Chargers are favored by 7.5. Last time I took a look, and it's against the Jags. And I just like, I don't know where Jacksonville is at this point. I mean, I know they're located in the state of Florida, but beyond that, I'm just not really sure where this football team, where their mind is. Like, are they officially in a rebuilding mode, and is that why they're basically starting to tank? And are they tanking on purpose, or is it just bad football and they just don't have enough to get things done? If you look at all of the moves that the Jags made in the offseason, it was all about tanking for a kid named Trevor Lawrence. That is the goal of the Jaguars sort of entering this season. Even though they've got a nice young quarterback in Gardner Minshew, and I know how you love his facial hair, but with all that being said, I just think this is going to be a different Charger team that's rested, coming off of a bye. I look for Justin Herbert to continue to do what he's been doing, but this time actually get a win, and they will cover the 7.5 points.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on this one. I just think, I don't think either of these teams really know where they're at.
Brad, do you need to go change your shirt?
No, the shirt is fine. This is a winning shirt right here. I've talked about it a couple times over the last few weeks when we've discussed the Chargers, and that every once in a while a team loses a guy that is critical, and he's the captain on the field, and he's the guy that gets players around him to play better. And ever since the Chargers lost Melvin Ingram, they just haven't been the same defense. And Justin Herbert's still a young kid. At times he looks great. At times he makes a rookie mistake. I look at this game, and I think the Chargers will win this football game. I just think 7.5 points is a lot. I don't see anything that makes me believe the Chargers should be a 7.5 point favorite over even the Jets at this point. I mean, they just haven't played great football. And, they've had a lot of injuries, nagging injuries, and defensively they haven't played very well. I'm going to take the Jaguars in the 7.5.
Yeah. One last comment on this. Look, the Jets, you had to bring up the Jets. They are just so bad. Like, my dream has been that someday a head coach in the National Football League, some people dream of being millionaires or billionaires, but my dream has been that someday in the National Football League, a head coach is going to be performing so poorly that they're going to fire him at halftime. And this past week was a perfect opportunity. The Jets were like 0-5, and Gates was down 21-0 at halftime, and I'm like, how? Okay, they're going to do it. I texted like 3 or 4 people the same thing, and Brad, I think I texted you that as well. I just like, and it didn't happen. And then today's Thursday, and we're recording this podcast on Thursday, and he's still got a job in New York. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. All right, Hoiseth.
Yeah, maybe he's got a lucky shirt he's wearing. Okay, my number 3 game was the Chiefs at the Broncos. The Chiefs are 9.5 point favorites. I don't think there's any question in most people's minds that they're one of the best teams in football, if not the best. They're 5-1. They're coming off a huge win at Buffalo last week. And now they enter what I think some would consider partly their soft part of their schedule. They get Denver, the Jets, and the Panthers over the next 3 weeks. The problem I have is Kansas City is last time they came off a big win, they proceeded to collapse, to Las Vegas in what was a divisional battle. And it's really kind of a similar thing here. Denver comes in at 2-3. But they've been one of the stingiest teams to beat in the entire league. They hung with Tennessee before falling. They hung with the Steelers before falling. And then finally they outplayed New England really badly last week in a game where, I completely got that one wrong. I thought Bill Belichick with an extra week to prepare would just destroy Vic Fangio, and I couldn't have been more wrong. So Denver, I just don't think they're that bad of a football team. Yeah, I know they're 2-3, and that probably doesn't get you to the playoffs in the AFC because there's so much depth there. They don't have a ton of imagination on offense, but they did get Philip Lindsay back, which gives them a little more firepower. Tim Patrick, I think, is a guy that could be an emerging star in the league. He averages 15.5 a catch. He's clearly a solid deep threat for that offense. This week they get Noah Fant back at tight end, who I think is unquestionably going to be one of the young stars at tight end in the league for a long, long time. It's a home divisional game for Denver. I say they keep it close. I think the Chiefs still win, but I like the 9.5 points. I'll take the 9.5 points in the Broncos. Yeah,
I'm going to roll the dice and head in the other direction. And the reason I'm going to do that is if you look at scoring, the average amount of points that the Chiefs score in a game, it's around 30. And if you look at the Broncos, it's around 20. And last week, Drew Luck in the victory against the Patriots had like a 38 quarterback ranking. And so as I sort of look at this game, and yeah, it's a divisional game. So I think the Chiefs score 25, 26 points in this game. But I don't have any confidence in Drew Luck's ability to get, 2 touchdown passes. Maybe he'll get one, and maybe they'll get one on the ground. But when I do the math, I end up with the Chiefs beating them between 10 and 12 points in this game. So I'm rolling the dice on this one for sure. I get exactly what Brad is saying. I think if you want to be safe and play it conservatively, that is a wise move. If you're looking if you're looking to shake things up a little bit, take a 9.5 in a divisional game. We'll do it for you. One last thing I want to say about the Chiefs real quick is, look, Andy Reid did his best impersonation of Bill Belichick earlier in the week when he signed Le'Veon Bell. I was like, oh, what do the Chiefs need Le'Veon Bell for? Like, they've got plenty of depth at running back as it is. And the last thing they needed was another stud running back. Now, Le'Veon Bell might be towards the end of his career. He might not have a lot left in his tank. But none of us really know because his tank has been infected by Adam Gase gas for the last 12 months. So he's going to get a cleaning, and he's going to have a chance to play for the Chiefs. But I think this move for the Chiefs was also a defensive move. They wanted to keep him away from that absolutely horrific rushing of the Buffalo Bills, who have been just terrible running the ball so far this season, which is affecting what they're doing in the passing game as well. So I think a defensive move by Andy Reid. If they get a lot out of Le'Veon Bell, great. At the same time, they kept him away from Buffalo for the remainder of this season.
Yeah, I think what they're looking for is somebody with a dump-off pass. I mean, I'm not entirely sure this is a great move by the Chiefs. Le'Veon Bell has been kind of a cancer in each locker room he's been in.
Yeah.
And so we'll have to wait and see how that all shakes out. He's definitely going to want to see the ball because there's some incentives in that contract. And then, how does that sit with the young kid, Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I'm not quite sure that sits well with him. And how does it sit with Damian Williams, who took the year off because of COVID? So, that move kind of puzzled me. Like you said, it might have been a defensive move to keep him out of the Buffalo Bills lineup. But, we'll see how that shakes down. It'll be interesting to see how they use him in the first week.
Yep. All right. So moving on, I've got the always fun Detroit Lions, Mr. Hoiseth's pick to win the. I'm not even going to say it. I got the Lions versus the Falcons in this game. If you pick the Falcons, you got to give up 3. Look, we all know that the year 2020 has been unbelievably bizarre to this point. I'm assuming that most of the people out there have seen the Netflix show Stranger Things. We are officially living in the upside down world. That is absolutely a truth. I mean, Dan Quinn gets fired finally by the slowest decision that an owner could possibly make. Finally gets fired, and then they make the decision to allow Raheem Morris to take over the team, who had been the defensive coordinator, who had led that Atlanta Falcons team straight down to the bottom of the defensive ranks in the NFL so far this year. And then what happens? They show up in Minnesota, and then they suddenly look like a legitimate football team. And it wasn't just that they beat the Vikings, it's that they beat the Vikings. They made some changes on the defensive side of the ball, and were actually playing with the P word, Brad. That's right. They were playing with some passion, and that was a huge thing. So I think maybe that's what Raheem Morris brings to the table. And I think that can take you a long way in the NFL, especially when you're playing against some other teams that, quite frankly, really just aren't that good. Your Detroit Lions. I'm taking the Falcons in this one, and I'm giving up the 3.
Hey, by the way, where is that game?
It is in Atlanta.
Right. And where did Matthew Stafford play college football?
I actually did. He
He played at the University of Georgia, friend. He is going home. And look, I'm going to say this about these two teams. Both these teams are better than their records. Now, it's not hard to be better than 1-5. I get that with the Falcons, but let's remember back. They had a couple games that they gave up with just historically crazy losses, or they'd be really a 3-3 football team.
Yep.
The Lions played the first 4 or 5 weeks without Kenny Golladay, and they're not that bad. And so I think this is going to be one of the more entertaining games of the week. I'm probably going to score in excess of 60 points easily. Neither team plays a lot of defense. Both teams have great offensive weapons. Exciting game. I think it's one of those where whoever has the ball last wins. I'm going to say Matthew Stafford goes home, gets a win in Georgia. I take the 3 points in the Lions.
Okay.
You like how I threw that out? You like how I threw that out there? That was. I almost convinced myself of that.
I'm not fully convinced, but I do like the I do like the argument. Look, I think the one other thing that the Lions have, sort of going against them, that's sort of been an advantage for them so far is, like, every game they've played, there's been no fans there. Sort of like a normal Detroit Lions home game. But they're going to have fans. They're going to have some fans in Atlanta this weekend. And that's, sure to cause some trouble for the Detroit Lions football team. As yet another reason I'm going with Atlanta.
Yeah, they'll have 500 fans in the stands, and they'll announce, well, this is Matthew Stafford's family, and he gave out 43 tickets this weekend or something. You're always going to hear one of those types of stories.
Yeah.
All right, let's get on to my number 2 pick. It is the Steelers at the Titans. Some would say it's the game of the week. The Steelers are a 2-point favorite on the road in Tennessee. This is going to be the toughest test Pittsburgh's faced all season. The Steelers' opponents are 9-19-1. And so Tennessee, easily the toughest team they've seen all year. It's a battle of unbeatens in the AFC. And whoever wins it is going to come out the early leader for the best AFC. Tennessee, same boat. They played a worse schedule, 9-20. So in many ways, you could say neither one of these teams has really played a great football team. And last week, Pittsburgh beat Cleveland and really was probably their most difficult game. Pittsburgh's got the number 2 defense in the league so far. They're only giving up about 285 yards a game. They've been particularly stingy against the run, only giving up 66 yards a game. However, they're going to meet up for the first time this week with a quarterback-wide receiver combo that can beat them deep with Ryan Tannehill and A.J. Brown. You mentioned it last week. You don't think their secondary is that good. And I kind of agree with you. I think they're relatively untested so far. They've been beaten up with teams that have mostly, adequate quarterbacks at best. The really only top-flight quarterback the Steelers have seen was Deshaun Watson, who scored 21 on them. Carson Wentz put up 29 points on them, which is the most points the Eagles have scored all season. I think the soft schedule finally catches up with Pittsburgh this season. And Tennessee exploits the Steelers secondary with A.J. Brown and Jonnu Smith. I say take Tennessee in the 2 points. It's a close game. It's a home game for Tennessee. I know that doesn't mean much this year, but I say the Titans. I say the Titans come out of that as the only undefeated team in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the soft schedule bowl for sure. I mean, it's like both of these teams, are so good right now on paper. And you're right, Brad. They've just both had extraordinarily soft schedules. So the soft, schedule bowl. Yep.
Who this game is going to come out, and the following week they're going to be talking about them as the only undefeated team in the AFC and how they're the favorites. And they're going to be writing these great stories on them. I think the real story is that neither one of them's really played anybody yet. along with the Seahawks. All three teams that are undefeated haven't played anybody.
Yeah, I know. I agree. And we know that Seattle might be in your, top 5 National Football League teams, but their defense is just so bad. At least, the Steelers have, Minka Fitzpatrick back there. He had an actual pick 6 last week. He's been a huge sort of difference in sort of, settling down that secondary a little bit in Pittsburgh. I still have questions on the other side of the ball, or the other side of the field, I should say. But this you can go either way on this game. It's just a question of, do you believe in Mike Tomlin more than Mike Vrabel? Now, the argument for Mike Vrabel is pretty simple. He has officially figured out how to brainwash Ryan Tannehill into believing that he's going to be a Hall of Fame quarterback someday. How else can you explain how great Ryan Tannehill has been playing? He's now the 3rd-ranked quarterback in the National Football League, Hoiseth. The 3rd-ranked quarterback. That's Ryan Tannehill.
Let me tell you something. I said it last week. Tennessee's a different A.J. Brown on the field.
Yeah.
They other than that, they don't have a ton. Let's not forget they had Smith dinged up and A.J. Brown, and so both those guys are back now. And Ryan Tannehill's a guy that can take off and run. I love his presence in the offense. He's not afraid to undress a guy if he runs the wrong route, and I just think that. They're the better young football team. I'm not quite sure how much that Ben Roethlisberger has left in the tank. I'm still waiting to see him beat a really decent team. Kind of beat up on the also-rans of the league. And then they had a really good week last week against Cleveland, and Chase Claypool has emerged as a good young player. But we're going to have to wait and see. I think this is a big game for both of these teams. And I think Tannehill is up to the challenge. I think he's a good football player. They obviously have one of the best running backs in the league in Derrick Henry. And, I think there's a lot of weapons there to work with. And I'm not quite sure either of these teams is the best team in the AFC. But it's the 2 undefeated teams right now.
Yeah. Well, I'm going the other way, though, Brad, after everything you've said. And after everything I've said about the Steelers and Mike Tomlin over the last couple weeks, I could flip a coin on this one. I'm not sure, where to really head, but I will definitely take the Steelers in this one. I just believe the magic potion that is in Ryan Tannehill's Gatorade is going to wear down a little bit in this one.
Yeah, Pittsburgh is a 2-point favorite. Would it really surprise you if Tennessee was a 2-point favorite? It wouldn't surprise me in the least.
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, not surprising at all. And in fact, it's almost surprising that they're not.
Right.
And I think what we're looking at here is it's just a Steeler team that might have a little more veteran leadership and stability in certain areas. And I think pound for pound, I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of analysts, especially in the gambling, world at this point, are pretty convinced that Big Ben Roethlisberger is back. And when you actually look at all of those weapons, I mean, like the Steelers have 4 wide receivers. Like they could trade a wide receiver if they needed to. If James Connors went down, who is having a nice season as well at running back. So I think I think that's what's happening here. And so I'm going to go ahead and bite the bait and go with the Steelers in this one. All right, Mr. Hoiseth, let me take you down to a little place called Texas. Actually, is this game in Washington? No, this game's in Washington, isn't it? Okay, so I've got the Washington football team and the Dallas Cowboys in this game. And as much as I, shouldn't be doing it after all of the public outrage over how bad their Dallas Cowboy coaching staff has been, I mean, you got players. Brad, you said to me the other day, you actually used the word mutiny. And that is exactly what this is going on with this Dallas Cowboy football team. But like I said earlier in the opening of this show, I just think that if pound for pound, Washington has the least amount of talent out of just about anybody in the National Football League this year, I believe this is going to be a Cowboy victory, and I'm happy, to take, to give up a point if I have to get it done.
Well, first of all, there's nothing that brings more joy to my heart than watching Jerry Jones just wiggle in his skybox as the Cowboys are getting embarrassed. Perhaps even more enjoyable was watching his son stand right next to him, and they're both wiggling back and forth.
And then the announcers point out, it's Jerry Jones, and then this is Jerry Jones' son, the CEO and president of the Cowboys and of player operations. It's the best.
Yeah, it was beautiful. I enjoyed every minute of it, actually. And so the Cowboys, though, man, we saw this with Mike McCarthy in Green Bay. I don't know if he's got an abrasive personality with some of the elite players on the team. A lot of times with Aaron Rodgers, there was obviously conflicts of interest between those two guys. I don't know who inside the Cowboy locker room is upset, but there's a lot of reports out there that there was 3 or 4 players that basically just said, we don't think the coaching staff knows what they're doing. And so, that is never a good thing. And then if you're Dallas, now you got problems on the offensive line. What do they have? 2 or 3 guys go down injured last week? Ezekiel Elliott's fumbling the football. They just look like a team that's really in trouble right now. I say going on the road, sometimes that can bring a team together. This doesn't sound like a team that's coming together anytime soon to me. I like Ron Rivera as a coach much better than I like the guy on the other side of the field. I'm going to take the Redskins.
Yeah, I agree
Did I call them the Redskins? I call them the Redskins. Yeah. I'm taking the football team.
The football team. I agree with everything you said. Just other than I just think CeeDee Lamb. I think Amari Cooper. I think Ezekiel Elliott. Literally, this should be a game that the Cowboys win easily if they can just get their offense going, and that's really what it's going to come down to. Like the Dallas Cowboys defense has the week off. Brad, I don't think you realize, that Washington's got a nice wide receiver and a decent, young running back, but that's it. This is like a bye week for this Dallas defense. So, that's why I'm going with Dallas in this one.
Yeah, it's kind of, flip a coin, really, when you think about it. So I'm going to my top game here. One of your favorite teams, the Green Bay Packers, are at the Texans. This was the line that just jumped off the board for me this week. The Packers suffered their first loss last week, falling to Tampa. It was a pretty humbling game, really, for the Packers, in particular for Aaron Rodgers. But I say don't expect it to happen twice in a row. As this week they get probably the best tonic you could ever ask for in the Houston Texans. If there's one thing we can count on from Aaron Rodgers over the years, it's that he's quick to bounce back and make a statement. Houston is the number 30 overall defense in the league. They've given up 21 touchdowns in 6 games. They're surrendering 423 yards a game. They're dead last in rush defense. The Packers will exploit that. Aaron Jones is a really talented running back. I think probably one of the top 5-6 backs in the league, if not higher. If there's a silver lining for Houston, it's that they're still number 3 in the league in pass offense. The Green Bay Packers are not great against the pass. They've done a pretty good job of getting along without DeAndre Hopkins. Will Fuller, Brandon Cooks, Randall Cobb. They've all kind of gotten more involved in the game. But the Packers aren't. Even the numbers don't really bear out. They're still number 14 in pass defense. I think a lot of that is because Aaron Rodgers is really smart, knows how to control the clock. They get a ton of first downs. They have a lot of long drives. I just think that it's a game where it's going to be hard for Houston to play catch up because their defense is just not very good. I say the Packers win comfortably. The Packers are only 3.5-point favorites. I think that's the easiest line of the week. I'll take the Packers.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. I was itching to, just for the fun of it, go against you and tell you why Deshaun Watson was going to resurrect the Texans, and they were going to figure out, how to come back and win this game, and blah 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 blah. But at the end of the day, when I did my analysis of the defense of the Texans so far this year, and I sort of compare, the Texans defense to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, because to me that's where this line comes from, and that's how I made my decision to go with the Packers this week. Look, Rodgers had no time last week. Rodgers, the joke is always, Rodgers usually has time to call his State Farm insurance agent, and add some additional dollars to his homeowner policy. I mean, that's how much time he has in the pocket normally. So, against the Buccaneers, they got a ton of pressure, and, Rodgers doesn't roll out quite as much as he used to. And he's not going to take as many chances as he used to. So he's more of a pocket passer, that usually gets a lot of time to make decisions, and that didn't happen against Tampa. He'll get back to that against the Texans, and to me, that was the big difference in this game, and that is why I'm agreeing with you and heading with the Packers.
Yeah, and remember a couple of weeks back, the Vikings played Houston, and the Vikings just ran up and down the field on Houston. They can't stop the run, and Aaron Rodgers is well aware of that. I think the Packers' offensive line is far superior to what the Vikings have to offer, and I think Aaron Jones is a similar back to Dalvin Cook, and Aaron Rodgers is arguably the most cerebral quarterback in the league. He will find a way to get it done against a bad defense. He might not always find a way to get it done against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he usually finds a way to get it done against a bad defense, and this is a really, truly bad defense.
Yeah. All right, I've saved the best for last. Yes, my new idol, Steve Levy, the Monday Night Football announcer. I'm just a huge fan. I think he's done a great job. Brad, you and I haven't talked about how, if we like this new Monday Night Football crew or not. Not so sold on Greasy. To me, he appears to think he's smarter and funnier than he actually is. But I do like Steve Levy and Louis Riddick as well. That being said, I decided to wait, and this was my last game of the week, and I'm going to see if you can guess who this is.
No,
this particular quarterback is currently the 28th ranked quarterback in the NFL.
You keep going down this road. You keep paying a price. How many times are you going to, there used to be an old saying in the world that if you continue to bang your head against the wall, eventually you have to say, ouch. Yeah. And, Dabbah, pretty soon you're going to have to say, ouch, that Nick Foles is winning a lot of games.
It's not that Nick Foles is winning games. It's that Matt Nagy is preventing Nick Foles from losing games. I mean, when you actually look at the stats and you look at Foles' performance, you can sort of see it. That Matt Nagy's done such a good job. And I've gone on rants about Nagy in the past. In case some of you are new to the show and you don't know, Matt Nagy, as a head coach in the National Football League, is 23-13. Like, I don't even know who the general manager is in Chicago. Like, he's playing. Like, they have no running game at all. They do have a nice defense. So we'll give them that. But there's so many other just vast missing pieces of this Chicago Bears football team. That the Bears sitting at first place in the NFC Central at 5-1 is pretty impressive, and a lot of that has to be attributed to the job that Matt Nagy and the rest of that coaching staff has done in Chicago. They are on the road on Monday Night Football against the Los Angeles Rams. Brad Hoiseth's favorite quarterback in the National Football League is not Jared Goff. So we've got a bit of a showdown here. Now, I believe that Sean McVay got completely outcoached by Kyle Shanahan last week. If you go back, just for the fun of it, I don't know if any of you out there have NFL Rewind or taped that 49ers game, but it is a thing of beauty to watch the call playing of Kyle Shanahan in that game. Look, I'm not a 49er fan, I'm a fan of quality football, and I'm a fan of good coaching, and that's exactly what that was. Sean McVay had no answers at all. Clearly, the Rams have more talent that is still healthy than the 49ers do at this point, and yet they lost. So I'm looking at this as a rebound game for the Rams. It's just sort of how this team functions. I don't see them losing another game in a row, and I see them actually destroying Chicago in this one, so they'll cover the 5.5.
Well, Dave, a really bad quarterback will occasionally make a coach look really bad. And that's what happened last week with Jared Goff and the Rams. And, man, what Nick Foles would give to have the talent that Jared Goff has around him. You got Allen Robinson, you got this Montgomery, you got Jimmy Graham. I mean, come on. They're 5-1 with a bunch of patchwork guys.
Yeah.
Nick Foles has got no chance. And he hasn't looked great so far. I mean, I'll give you that. He hasn't looked particularly good. But the guy keeps winning football games. And I'm not entirely sold. You and I talked about this earlier in the week. I'm not entirely sold that Sean McVay is a great football coach. I think he's had a great general manager that's given him a lot of tools to work with. That was a pretty bad loss for the Rams last week. Do they bounce back? I don't know. Look, the Bears are tough. That defense will keep them in any game. And, when you got a defense like that, that's, to me, 5.5 points is a lot of points. The Rams may very well win this game, but if you're going to give me that defense and the Bears, I'll take the 5.5 every day of the week. I don't care where that game is. When Jared Goff's involved, that's a lot of points to give up.
Yeah, I was just thinking, there's a new hockey team going to be in Seattle in 2 years called the Kraken. And I was just thinking, Sean McVay is going to unleash the Kraken in this game. There's too much talent on this team to keep them down for as long as they've been down for. They'll get tricky. They'll figure some stuff out. They'll get the ship heading in the right direction for sure with the Rams in this one. So, but I will formally apologize if I'm wrong about Nick Foles yet again on next week's show to you, Mr. Hoiseth. You have my solemn oath on that. All right. So those are our top 10 games of the National Football League week number 7 that we think are worth spending some money on. Mr. Hoiseth.
One more note we haven't talked about yet. The Little Brown Jug this Saturday, Mr. Dabbah. The Gophers open the season against the Michigan Wolverines for the Little Brown Jug. How weird is that? First of all, you're starting the season like 4 weeks after anybody, and you open it up for the Little Brown Jug. This will be like the year they win it, the Gophers. Yeah. Will it not? I mean, nobody will care. Nobody will be there to see it. And somehow, some way, it'll, they'll finally, I think, who's the favorite in that game?
How many years has it been since the Golden Gophers have walked away with the Little Brown Jug?
I want to say they won it about 10 years ago, but that was the first time they'd won it in about 25. I mean, it's been few and far between. And you mentioned Brian Griese. I can't stand Brian Griese. And one of the reasons I don't like Brian Griese is because the Gophers had a chance to beat Michigan one year. They were up like 31-10 in the game. And Brian Griese led the Wolverines back to beat my Gophers. And I remember just being devastated sitting on my couch. I haven't gotten over it yet. And so Steve Levy, Brian Griese, I can't stand that duo. Get rid of them. Bring back Madden for crying out loud. What's John Madden up to?
He's right down the street from here. He's like 10 minutes away. But he's not. I don't think he's really traveling too much these days. But,
he never traveled. He was a guy that took a bus, wasn't he?
Yeah. I don't even think he's doing that. I think up in age at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I Monday Night Football to me should be way better than Brian Griese. It just should be, and they should have paid. I don't know if you like Tony Romo at all or not.
Love Tony Romo.
They should have paid him, and him and his magic 8-ball to sit in the booth and given him the $20 million that he wanted to do Monday Night Football. Like, it was a no-brainer. They should have gotten that contract done. And, they continue to sort of let it suffer. I mean, I remember when Sunday Night Football first got the package, And it was sort of like, yeah, well, we're going to still have Monday Night Football, but it's going to be on ESPN. And it's sort of like they purposely downplayed it so that the Sunday Night Football game became the primary game. Now ABC is paying so much money for this Monday Night Football package that they needed to start, delivering on ratings, and quite frankly, it's a new booth every 12 months. It's just no consistency there. But I disagree with you about Steve Levy. I think Steve Levy is solid. You just got to get him with the right person. All right. Well, listen, thanks so much for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. This is week number 7 of your National Football League. Lots of really cool stories and features on the Mighty.rip website, so make sure you check that out. If you haven't subscribed to the show yet, Brad, I'm told we're supposed to grovel. Please go ahead and subscribe to the show. That is Brad Hoiseth in beautiful Southern California. I am Dave Dabbah up in Northern California. For the Gods of Odds, we are wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports week.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out Mighty.rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.